Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
You got your coffee and stuff ready?
Yes,
Just warm my little cup up.
ready.
Who we got in the bushes? Good morning. All right, so let's see. Okay, I shared it on my community wall. Let me share it on this community wall. So you said you think these chapters a little shorter than the others?
Yeah, the other chapters we were reading was like 40 something pages, and this one is like 25 pages total.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and a couple of them are like half pages. So I'm looking.
Okay, one moment, real quick.
I need to turn on my do not disturb too. Let me try to do. Back. Hello. We're about to read. Um, am I still alive? Okay, I am still on. So we're about to read chapters 41 through 45 today. And then after that, we'll begin disc 5, which is the last disc in the book. Good morning, Maritza. Good morning in the Note Glow. Okay, we're going to start reading. Chapter 41, Lord Knows. They dumped Lena right before his, they dumped, oh, Trey dumped Lena right before his solo album was released. It went platinum. She just read in US Weekly that he was dating Yvette Miller, the Y in PYT. Last she heard, Crazy G was still messing with the P. Lena was convinced it was a conspiracy. The only bright light in her life was that girl Mary Ellis was killing it at Parsons. Some of her slash their designs were displayed in an exhibit at the school. Lena had dropped over there to check it out. Mary Elise's was bringing the hotness for real. Daddy was so excited when he got the first reports. The credit card was back in full effect and he'd even double her allowance. And best of all, he was bragging about her to all his friends and everybody he knew. Now, folks had something positive to say. He was in town and he said that he had a surprise for her. What could it be? She wondered, nervously nibbling on the end of her micro braids as she turned the corner for Bice, the restaurant where she was meeting him for dinner. New rims for the Range? No, a brand new ride. The Range Rover was over 2 years old. Would it be an Escalade? Maybe her own apartment. She was a little old to be living at home. And if she got her own spot, she could smoke and blaze her blunts in peace without Henrietta tracking her down. Lena strolled into Bison looked around. Daddy spotted her and waved from the back. She even wore a dress. She even wore a dress tonight to make him extra happy. It was an ultra short, one shoulder Allen Iverson jersey dress, but it wasn't sweatpants. Beaming with maternal pride, Marlon opened his arms wide for a hug. What a cute little dress, honey. Did you make that? Is that one of your designs? Yeah, she said. She actually gotten it at Dr. J's. She went to 3 different stores to find one. They were all the rage and selling like hotcakes. She pulled out a chair and he said, not there. Mrs. Smith is sitting there. Lena noticed that there was a half-empty glass of water at the place, and a few breadcrumbs on the plate. Mrs. Smith, she repeated, taking another seat at the table. She vaguely remembered Mrs. Smith as one of the names of his uppity friends. He called them all by their first names, but he had referred to them as Mrs. and Mrs. whatever. And they all had some son or nephew that for her to meet. The only benefits of getting written up in the papers as a boozer was that Dad had stopped playing Cupid and trying to hook her up with people. The shame was much too much for him to bear. Now that he thought that she was a star in Parsons, he probably felt that she was ready to get back on the market. The fourth place at the table was probably for Mrs. Smith's respectable son, a meek attack, a meek attack hookup. Daddy, she said, I hope this isn't a surprise. Well, yes, he said, it's Mrs. Smith. She went to the ladies' room, but I can fill you in before she gets back. Oh, Lena thought, chewing on a breadstick. Here it comes. Her son is a senior at NYU. He's majoring in finance or something. You'll like him, Marlena. He's cool. He's creative. Instead, he said, I'm donating some money so that they can start a minority scholarship program at Parsons. And then he looked at her as if she hit the lotto. So talented, so talented, but financially disadvantaged students can have an opportunity just like you. Then giddy to tell her, he added, we're leveling the playing field so designers like you can be what they want to be. That's a surprise, she snapped. How was that good for her? Fuck a scholarship program, she thought. Hook me up with a brand new car. Give me some rims. Yes, Marlon said, almost levitating with joy. And that's not all. Never giving up, she was expecting him to say something along the lines of, and you get a brand new car, anything you want. Come on, Daddy, she thought, leaning forward and with anticipation. Hit me with it. We're thinking of naming the scholarship after you, he said delightedly. Lena threw down the breadstick. You already got a scholarship program up and running. She wanted to holler. And the name is Mary Ellis Gonzalez. Instead, she shouted, what? Use your indoor voice, Marlena, he urged, looking around. Lena's mind was racing. She needed to maintain a low profile at the school for the scam to work long term. Mary Elise's having her designs on display made her a little nervous, but she figured it was a good thing. It was Lena's name signed on those sketches, but this scholarship program was going to put her on the spotlight for sure. Why couldn't her stupid father just leave well enough alone? It dawned on her at that moment that he hadn't heard her say anything about Mrs. Smith or the fix-up. Daddy, she said, a dampness forming at the back of her neck. Who is Mrs. Smith? You know her, he said. The woman who worked on the fresh air fund benefit? She asked, trembling. No, he said, and gave her the silly girl Annette Smith from the school. He smiled as someone over her shoulder walked up. There she is. Lena began to turn her head. Everything was moving in slow motion. She felt faint. Lord, she prayed, have a sister's back just for this one time. If Mrs. Smith was someone she met during the interview or registration process, she could play it off and decide on her next move. If Mrs. Smith was one of the teachers who Mary Elise's she was completely fucked. Lena stood, and just as she caught Mrs. Smith in her peripheral sights, she heard Daddy say, "You two have met." His voice sounded muffled. She felt like she was underwater. Please, she prayed. Please let that be true. Lena and Mrs. Smith locked eyeballs. She watched Mrs. Smith smile turn to a U-turn, make a U-turn. For a moment, the whole room went black. She couldn't breathe. She was going to pass out. Oh God, please forgive me for the trespasses I have committed. No, I don't think we have, said the dean of Parsons School of Design, confused because she'd gone down to one of the classes yesterday to introduce herself to Marlena Whitaker after Mr. Whitaker had contacted her about the generous offer. This was not the sweet curly-haired girl she'd met. Mrs. Smith looked at Marlon. Marlon looked at Lena. Lena looked at the door. Ready, set, go. Without saying a word, Lena sprinted out of the bike as at a world record speed, braids flying like a kite. That's the end of chapter 41.
Dang, that was quick.
Yeah, real quick. Okay. Chapter 42. You be illin'. Crazy G really got around. He recently moved on from the P in PYT to a new set of letters, NV, at Gambino's 29th birthday bash at Haven. Lena had been giving her former friend and former boyfriend the evil eye all night. Since the debacle at Bice with Daddy, she'd been hiding out at Lamont's vacant West Village apartment. Daddy had called her several times, but she never picked up her cell. Unable to reach Lena, he and Mrs. Smith had a talk with the other Marlena Whitaker. Mary Elise's confessed all, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Now she was back working at the laundromat. Out of respect for Marlon, Travis Peters ran the item blind. What powerhouse attorney is red faced after it? What powerhouse attorney is red faced after it came to light that his alcohol swilling, trash talking party girl daughter was paying another girl to take all her classes at design school? It was one of the easier blind items to figure out. Marlon returned to LA, and Lena didn't want to imagine how furious he was. She didn't have to. A few days later, her cell stopped working. She tried to go shopping to ease her pain, but her credit card was denied. The saleswoman cut it up right there and then in front of her at the Puma store. Panicked, she went to the mobile station to load up on her cigarettes and whatever else she could, but it was too late. That card didn't work either. She slipped back into the apartment late one night, grateful the locks hadn't been changed, and got her stuff. Ever since, she'd been sleeping all day and drinking all night. Mimi kept telling her to apologize to her father, but Lena didn't know what to say to him. Mimi was now carrying her financially. Let's get out of here, Mimi said, thinking, poor Lena, making a fool of herself yet again. She didn't know how she was going to tell Lena that she had to get out of Lamont's apartment. He finally sold it and he told Mimi to kick Lena out. But Lena was in such a bad way, she could never bring herself to do it. She just kept urging her to make up with her father so she wouldn't have to say anything at all. She was thinking of suggesting to stay at a rehab too. But she saw Lena wouldn't take to that kindly. Let's go, Mimi said, stronger that time. She had to get home. She had a bunch of interviews scheduled for tomorrow. Her album was being released next week. Lamont had already taken off, uninterested in celebrating Don Gambino's birthday. He told her not to stay long because she needed her beauty rest and left Alonzo there to watch over her. But she hadn't seen Zoe in an hour. Carlos was waiting outside in his Suburban. No, Lena slurred, slipping on her fourth Whitaker whiskey, a potent cocktail that the club had named after her. I want them to see me. It's ruining their night. They make an ugly couple anyway, Vanessa said crankily, coming down from her coke high on the other side of their booth. They stayed for another half hour. The crazy G and Envy pairing, while hip hop's new it couple whipped it up around the room, noticing Lena's stares but not caring. Even eventually, Gambino and the firing squad urged Envy to go over and say something to Lena for their amusement. "How's it going, Lena?" Envy said, sliding up with the confrontational swagger. That was all it took. Lena stood up in the booth and shouted, "Don't say shit to me." "Let's go, honey," Mimi said, trying to grab Lena. Vanessa sat back to enjoy the floor show. "You got beef?" Envy said. "Bitch, I will crack you in your motherfucking forehead," Lena screamed, wobbling on her unsteady feet. She grabbed the edge of the booth for support. Mimi tried to pull her down. "You're pathetic, Lena," Envy snapped and rolled her eyes. Gambino and crew were standing up to get a better view. They were loving the scene, popping Cristal, and laughing. Their laughter abruptly stopped when Lena proved to be a woman of her word. As promised, she grabbed her a heavy glass of Whitaker whiskey and smashed it hard into Envy's motherfucking forehead. Envy let out a blood curdling scream and hit the floor with a thud, her hands covering her bludgeoned face. "Alonzo!" Mimi shrieked. "Alonzo!" Lena tried to jump down on top of Envy, but Mimi held her back, hysterically screaming, "Alonzo!" 20 members of the firing squad were hopping booths with the quickness, shoving shocked partygoers out of the way to rescue the girl. Vanessa, still reclining back, hadn't batted an eyelash. She started plenty of catfights backstage at the shows. She sort of missed them. Vanessa had no interest in Envy one way or the other because she thought Envy was ugly and therefore so far beneath her she might as well be in a grave. But when Envy fell on that floor an inch away from the steel pipe spike of Vanessa's chew, it was an opportunity Vanessa couldn't resist. She calmly lifted her foot, sliced, and left a long red gash on Envy's cheek. "Now let's leave," Vanessa said. Security rushed over as Alonzo swooped in and hustled them outside. Nina was screaming incoherently. Mimi was crying. Vanessa was yawning. The next day, the cover of the New York Tribune was a split shot. Mimi on one side, Envy on the other. The headline blared, "Hip Hop Girl Fight." Page 3 detailed the ruckus, saying that Lena and Mimi had gotten into an argument with Envy that turned physical. Mimi was horrified that she was publicly dragged into Lena's mess. She hadn't done anything. Ali C issued a tense statement saying Mimi was not involved in any way in the unfortunate altercation at Haven last night. She does not condone violence under any circumstances. She wishes Envy a speedy recovery. There was no picture of Vanessa and only a cursory mention that she had even been present. She finally carried through on the longtime threat to fire Ali C as her publicist. Lamont was overjoyed. Mimi's album was scheduled for release in 4 days, and his triple large princess was front page news. Who could ask for anything more? And that's the end of chapter 42. Chapter 43, Top Ballin'. Mimi's debut album, The Haitian Mommy, was released on Tuesday. That afternoon, she sat in the green room at MTV's Times Square studio and looked at her CD cover for the hundredth time. They'd done 3 shoots before Lamont gave his final approval. The first pictures were deemed too slutty. The second attempt was not enough sex. She looked at the cover now and smiled. It was a shot of her from the waist up. She was topless, and with her waist length, straight blonde hair, they added some extensions covering her augmented breast. On her neck was her diamond Mimi necklace. She flipped it over. The back cover was her back, just her long hair and her henna tattoo that read "Princess" on the small of her back. She opened the case and looked at the track listings printed inside the booklet. Number 1, Baby Love. written by BKC, and D. Henry. Produced by Country D for Lil Big Man Productions. Number two, Yeah, 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 written by T. Oliver, S. Barnes, J. Merrill, L. Parker. And then number three, Hold Up. All of them have Country D listed. Number four, Did Me Jeezy, featuring Super Fat E. Number five, Lord Knows. Number six, Like That. Okay, I'm gonna read these because they have real people in here. So number one, Baby Love, written by BKC, Dean Henry, and produced by Country D for Lil Big Man Productions. Number two, Yeah, 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 written by T. Oliver, S. Barnes, J. Myro, L. Parker, S. Sterling, D. Styles, K. Johnson, L. Johnson, Q. Johnson, K. Buntley, D. Horde, D. Mobley, produced by Troy Oliver for Milk Chocolate Productions, Tone and Polk for Trackmasters Entertainment, Corey Rooney for Corey Rooney Entertainment. Number three, Hold Up, written by D. McHenry, produced by Country D for Lil Big Man Productions. Number four, Did Me Greasy, featuring Super Fat E, written by P. Williams, C. Hugo, produced by The Neptunes. Number five, Lord Knows, written and produced and arranged by R. Kelly. Number six, Like That, written by R. Jenkins and Y. Brightweight, produced by Rodney Jenkins for Darkchild Productions. Number seven, Lovely, written by Gemini, produced by Gemini for Keeping It Frugal Productions. Number eight, Baby Girl, featuring Rags Jams, written by A. Elliott and Gemini, produced by Gemini for Keeping It Frugal Productions. Number nine, Like the First Time, written by M. Winans and Sean Combs, produced by Sean P. Diddy Combs for The Hitman, Bad Boy Entertainment. Number 10, Do That Thing, written by T. Oliver, L. Lewis, C. Rooney, M. Denny, produced by Troy Oliver for Milk Chocolate Productions. Number 11, 10 Carats, featuring Lady Di, written by A. Carter, G. Mosley, P. Rydell, produced by Timbaland for Timbaland Productions. Number 12, All Up On You, written by J. Timberlake, W. Robinson, produced by Justin Timberlake for Tin Man Productions. Number 13, Feel Me, written by Gemini, produced by Gemini for Keeping It Frugal Productions. Number 14, What the Deal, featuring MC Grimy, written by A. Smith, T. Pitts, F. Leroy, and produced by Swiss Beats for Rough Riders Productions, Inc. Number 15, track, Baby Love, Country D remix featuring Floss, written by BKC, McHenry, E. Graves, additional production by Country D for Lil Big Man Productions, executive producers Lamont Jackson and Alonzo Jackson. The only three songs on the album she really loved were the ones she done along with Gemini. Feel Me was a slow groove, really sexy. When she recorded it, she had turned the lights down and lit some scented candles, and he had written Lovely for her late one night after she'd gone to bed. He'd originally titled it Princess, but she talked him out of that. She knew if Lamont had seen the song title, he would have chosen that Lovely, but he never knew about it. Baby Girl was tight to death. Just seeing the name Raga Jams in the credits gave her a contact high. Raga was the Jamaican dance hall king, and he shown up at the Funk Shack with three friends and had an enormous bag of ganja that he smuggled into the country. Everyone was thrilled to see him. He come to work on the album, but Jim decided he and Mimi should do a song together. Jim and Raga blazed and marinated on the idea overnight. Mimi spent much of the time trying to fill in the blanks created by Raga's sayings. It was so thick by his accent. It was so thick. She couldn't understand a word he was saying. Not in person nor on the records they recorded. All she knew was that Raga really liked her and thought she was a cutie. Jim translated that. And that Baby Girl was her absolute favorite song on the album. She wasn't crazy about the track like the first time, but she liked it fine. She wasn't crazy about the track like the first time, but she liked it fine. Everyone said Diddy was a total taskmaster, but she found him sweet and funny as could be. She just didn't know how he could see anything without taking off those dark shades in the studio. She did love Lord Knows. That was the only track where she really got to sing. It showed off her voice. She never seen the alleged infamous video of R. Kelly, but she judged Robert solely on how he behaved with her. He was a perfect gentleman, and the arrangement he done was just beautiful. Still, she understood why Lamont had sent Alonzo and a bodyguard with her to Chicago to record at Robert's studio. Country D had done 6 songs, of which only 3 made the final cut. The first single, Baby Love, penned by those cute twins Brian and Brandon from the group Jagged Edge, was already in heavy rotation on the radio. Daryl was crowing about it to everyone, taking all the credit, which made it its success bittersweet. She counted 35 writers in total. Did it really take 12 people to write Yeah, Yeah, Yeah? She hadn't written one song. All 35 songs were men. Allie C popped her head in the hallway. They're ready for you on the set. Mimi went out and stood in the wings of TRL set, smoothing her long blonde hair, straightening her joy top. She heard Lala, the VJ, introducing her. Mimi walked out, flashed her $15,000 pearly whites, and waved at the cheering crowd. That's the end of chapter 43. I'm going to drink some water. Chapter 44. No sleep till Brooklyn. How can you do this to me? Lena shrieked. She was still in her pajamas, even though it was past 2 in the afternoon. I'm sorry, Mimi said, but Lamont sold the apartment. You need to find somewhere else to crash. Can I stay with you guys? No, it came out stronger than Mimi intended. Why not? Lamont has all those extra rooms. It's not possible. Why? You just can't. Ask Lamont. I don't need to ask him. He might say yes. He won't anyway. I'm saying no. How can you do this to me, Lena? Well, I'm not doing anything to you. You're doing all this to yourself. Lena flopped on the couch and fired up a Marlboro. She started taking her cornrows out last night. One half of her head was down and was braided, and the other half, one half of her head was down, and the other half was braided with 6 inches of crimped dandruff flecking on the other side. Call your father and apologize, Mimi demanded, standing over her. I don't want to. Well, you don't have any other options. I could come and stay with you in Lamont. Lena took a deep drag and squinted her eyes at Mimi through the smoke. Forlornly, she asked, how can you do this to me? Why is everything about you? Mimi snapped. Lena ashed in the paper cup, half filled with last night's booze. You're the one who thinks she's all that. Don't be mad because I'm about something. Yeah, about yourself, Lena said. That's why they call you me, me, me. Mimi ignored the slight. Lena, call your father and apologize, then move back into your huge apartment and get yourself together. Stop acting like you're on the run from the law. It ain't that deep, honey. Lena didn't appreciate Mimi's lecture or her patronizing tone. She sucked her teeth and dropped her cigarette into the cup. Lena, Mimi said, sitting down next to her and some of her discarded braids, Crazy G is an asshole. Who you telling? He dicked you down and dismissed you and walked away with the $15,000 necklace. I know, Lena said. Then why the hell do you care if he's with Envy? Mimi said sensibly. Better he's using her than you, Lena muttered. I know, I know. If you know, why didn't you go after Envy? Why'd you do that to her? Lena stopped pulling out some of the braids and cut her eyes. You're taking her side now? Her side? Mimi shook her head and sighed. Was there no getting this through the Lena? There's no getting through the Lena. Her side is the only side anyone can take. She had to get 20 stitches. That's fucked up, Lena said, managing to acknowledge the seriousness of the situation without taking any personal responsibility. Yes, it is. But are you even sorry? 20 stitches in her face. She's an artist, Lena. That's her livelihood. Oh, now that you're Miss Hip Hop slash R&B princess, all you bitches got to stick together, huh? She's talking about suing you. I heard. Mimi was afraid to say what she needed to say next, but she had to. Your father called me. What? Lena threw a braid on the table. When? Yesterday. What'd he say? He said that he read Envy's thinking about suing you. He thinks you need representation. She ain't gonna sue me. She's just on some shit. She has every right to sue you. What'd you tell my father? I told him where you were. He's flying in tonight. What, Lena Well? How could you do this to me? You need to grow up, Mimi. You need to grow up, Lena, Mimi shouted at her wits' end. Your father loves you. He's trying to help you, and you need help. A long silence. I think you need to go to rehab. Did you tell my father that? Lena screamed. Mimi protectively folded her arms against her chest and leaned on the couch. Yes. Lena piled on top of her, yelling and screaming. Your father loves you, Mimi screamed, pushing her off. I wish I had a father like that. I wish I had a father. You do, Lena said idly, curling into the corner of the sofa. Lamont doesn't even like you, Mimi fired back, tired of Lena's never ending bullshit. The only reason he hangs out with you is because of your father. He likes your father, a man he's never met, a hell of a lot more than he likes you. Lena grabbed the booze and butt-filled cup and tossed the contents into Mimi's lap. Fuck you. Mimi stood up and wiped her fetish tracksuit and gasped, "You sloppy drunk bitch." Poor white trash, Lena cried, going for a low blow. C-list. Daddy dick sucker. Mimi responded pittily. Ho. Fuck you, Lena said, hopping around in the fit. You cunt. After a shock, ooh, no, you didn't, hush, Mimi walked quickly to the door before she wound up in the hospital like Envy. Your father will be here in a few hours, she shouted, looking over her shoulders. If you don't want to see him, I suggest you get your shit and get out of here. I will be out of here, Lena screamed from the kitchen, where she was pouring herself a stiff drink. I don't need you. Good, Mimi shouted, and before slamming the door, she fired a final diss that she knew would be a stake through Lena's heart. You wanna be gangsta bitch. Lamont was riding uptown in the Suburban with Nate and Alonzo when Baby Love came on the radio. He smiled. Here's your girl, Nate crowed. Lamont's smile got bigger. Then they heard something none of them was expecting. Daryl's voice in the background, whispering, "This is a country dizzle for shizzle my nizzle." It was the Baby Love remix Daryl had done it with himself on the record. The remix Lamont had expressly warned him could not be released. And he was also shouting out his own name as the producer. What the hell is this? Nate said, an uneasy feeling overtaking him. Had the curse of the succubus family been unleashed? If Lamont could have jumped into the radio and cracked the record into 1,000 tiny pieces, he would have. The remix featuring Floss hadn't been released yet. Daryl must have slipped this one, his own version, to the mix show DJ. Lamont wondered how many other people Daryl had slipped it to. But this wasn't even the first mix that Lamont had heard. This was a different mix, and Daryl was ad-libbing all over the record. This is the remix. Country D, this is the remix. That what? Yeah, sing that shit. And in closing, yeah, motherfuckers. Lamont called Imani. Where does Daryl live? Since Daryl had made some money from his production work, he moved from his crummy Bed-Stuy apartment studio to a brownstone apartment in the cooler Brooklyn neighborhood of Fort Greene. He could also be seen driving around town in a purple Navigator. Lamont Suburban pulled up to the address Imani had provided them on South Oxford Street at midnight. Alonzo rang the bell, but there was no answer, so they parked down the block and waited. Just before 1, they saw a cab pull up at Daryl's address, but it wasn't Daryl. It was Lena. She began carting a bunch of Louis bags from the cab's trunk to Daryl's front stoop. Is Daryl with her? Lamont said, peering through the back window. The taxi took off, leaving Lena alone with her luggage on the steps. What's she doing here? Nate said. Mimi kicked her out of the other apartment, Lamont said. Why doesn't she just make up with her father? Alonzo sighed. But again, what's she doing here? Nate said. Let's find out, Lamont said and jumped out. Nate and Alonzo followed him. Lamont rolled up. What's good, Lena? She almost jumped out of her skin. Nothing, she said sourly when she saw who was behind her. What are you doing here? We're going to ask you the same thing, Lamont said. Well, she said coldly, I got evicted from my former residence. So you're going to stay with Daryl? Don't you have enough problems? Daryl is a real friend, she said, giving Lamont a accusingly smile look. Unlike some people, the truth of the matter was that she had never considered Daryl a friend until tonight. Kiko was out of town as usual, and there was no way to get into her place. And Mimi was her only other real friend. She called Daryl as a last resort, but as soon as she spoke to him, she began to feel better. Daryl couldn't stand Mimi, and when Lena told him what had happened, they instantaneously bonded in the your enemy is my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of way. And he told her to stop by the studio to get his keys. She was looking forward to staying up all night talking to Daryl, hating on the bitch. Sorry about that, but those are the breaks, boo, Lamont said and shrugged. Where's Daryl? I don't know, she said, unlocking the door. Make yourselves useful and get my bags. Lamont, Nate, and Alonzo each grabbed one of her duffels and went in. Did you try your cell? Lena said. No, Lamont said. He wanted to fire him face to face. And he didn't want Daryl to know it was coming. Anyway, if Daryl saw any of their numbers come up on his phone, it was unlikely that he would answer. They all entered the apartment. It was spacious but sparsely furnished. Lena gave Lamont a very obvious once over. That zone diet didn't work out for you, huh? Not at all, he admitted. Why are you looking for Daryl? Lena asked, lighting a cigarette. Just want to have a chat, Lamont said. Business matters. Lena raised a skeptical eyebrow. At midnight in Brooklyn? Lamont poked around the place. There were two bedrooms, but only one had a bed. The walls of Daryl's rooms were decorated with 8 Tupac posters, a backshot of Lady Di, and a framed Scarface movie poster. The living room held just an enormous TV, a black leather couch, and a black lacquer table piled 2 feet high with rap, car, and porno magazines. Lamont stretched out on the couch. Alonzo perched on the arm and picked up a black tail. Nate stood leaning against the wall. Hey, Lena, Lamont said, why don't you call Daryl and see when he'll be home? Why should I? Because I'm asking you to. What's in it for me? She asked. Lamont shook his head and pulled out his knot. He peeled out $100 bill. He peeled off $100 bill and slapped it into Lena's hand. Lena looked at him without any change in expression. He peeled off 2 more. Lena still looked at him. That's all, he said, and handed her Daryl's cordless. She punched in his number. After a brief confab, Lena hung up and reported, he's on the way. 10 minutes later, Carlos called Lamont and alerted him of Daryl's arrival. He was parking right outside. Nate, Alonzo, and Lamont got up and left without a word to Lena. They darted down the stairs and spotted Daryl climbing out the truck. Get over here, Lamont shouted, hustling down the steps, flanked by his guys while Carlos was charging up the block. Seeing the convergence of angry faces, Daryl quickly changed directions, hopped back into his navigator, and with the pill of rubber sped off as Lena watched from the stoop. The next day, Lamont came to work with the intention of having Daryl's office cleaned out and barring him from the premises, but Daryl's office was already as clean as a whistle. Lamont's office, on the other hand, was a mess. Snickers bars were smeared all over his desk, and a note was stabbed in his beloved office chair with a cheap pocket knife. In Daryl's messy scrawl, it said, "Fuck you, fat man. I quit." Chapter 45, One Love. It took 1 month for the Haitian Mommy to go platinum. Baby Love was well on its way to becoming the most overplayed song of the year. Daryl's unauthorized remix was playing on all the mix shows. Then the Floss remix hadn't had been released, and that was getting big play too. A celebration was in order. When Lamont and Mimi arrived at Tao at 10 o'clock for her platinum party, the place was packed. Daryl hadn't been invited, and neither had Lena. No one had spoken to them since that night in Brooklyn, and no one wanted to. At midnight, Lamont escorted Mimi to a small stage at the front of the restaurant. A huge cake decorated with the candy reproduction of Mimi's CD cover was wheeled out. The music was turned off, and Lamont took the microphone. People were hanging over the balconies and crowding to the front for a good view. First, let's have a round of applause for our girl Mimi. Mimi cringed when he added, Triple R's first princess. She told him not to say that. There was a boisterous explosion of applause and cheering. Mimi smiled awkwardly and waved at everyone gaped at her. Tonight is a special night for Mimi and a special night for me as well, Lamont said. All of a sudden, the music came back on and Mimi frowned. Lamont was speaking. Someone was about to get yelled at. But Lamont did not look bothered that the music interrupted him. Then she realized it was that John B song, their song. Lamont got, Lamont got down on one knee in front of 700 people. He took her hand and lovingly looked up at her. She saw Vanessa, Mama, Nate, and Jordan looking down from one side of the VIP balconies. What was going on? They all looked as surprised as he did. Don't listen to what people say, Lamont whispered, but it sounded pretty loud because he still had the mic. They don't know about all the women in the room simultaneously. He set the microphone down on the floor and took a black velvet box from the pocket of his Armani suit jacket. He popped it open, and the oohs from the ladies got even louder. Princess, will you marry me? Mouth open, Mimi froze, feeling 700 pounds of pairs of eyes on her. Mama thought, my word, what is this? Then, oh no, what about Kendra? Then, wedding at the plaza, dressed by Vera Wang, flowers by Preston Bailey. God is good, God is good. Imani thought, hurry up, Mimi, say yes. You're embarrassing him, and his trousers are getting dirty. Jordan thought, this poor child doesn't know what she's getting into. Nate thought, ha, hand down your pimp card. Nigga, you're done. Vanessa thought, yo quiero creer esto. Uh, if that's 6 carats, I'm getting an upgrade tomorrow. Alonzo thought, I wonder if the Giants covered that spread. Mimi looked back at Lamont. He lived up to every promise he'd ever made to her. He made her a star. She was his princess. She wanted her to be his forever. She held out her hand and said yes. Lamont slipped the 7 carat Fred Leighton on the ring finger of her left hand, then rose and kissed her, prompting wild cheers from the crowd. Ali C placed into the club's office. Ali C placed into the club's office where she had her laptop all set up. She hit send on the mass emails that she had already prepared. It was a press release to all members of the media announcing Lamont and Mimi's engagement and declaring that the wedding would be at the social event of the year. Lamont had approved it yesterday. And that's the end of chapter 45.
Yeah, that was quick. It was good throwing them little couple of chapters though.
Oh my
Dang.
goodness, the tussle.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I wouldn't even expect
She
Bling to
busted
be
her head.
able to put in no work like that though.
She said, I'm gonna hit you in your motherfucking head and did it.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a quick little.
So it's 10 chapters left?
There are. We now on chapter 46, and there are 58 chapters.
Oh, it's 58. Wow.
And then there's a little epilogue afterwards,
Yeah, okay.
which is a couple pages, and then there's a couple shout out pages. But did you hear me read the titles of her songs?
Mm-hmm.
and I had to read. I started to skip over like the credits and stuff in there, but once I started realizing like it was real credits, so like that's the looking point, like that's a research point because it's real credits with real people in there. It was Timberland in there, it was R. Kelly in there, it was like specifically real people on these songs. Like the way that she cited the front of this book with John B. song and 50 Cent song because she used it in the book, I think that these songs might really be real songs.
Yeah, they could possibly be. Ain't no telling.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do some more tomorrow, 5 more chapters. And we only got a few more days left.
All right. Well, thanks everybody that pulled up. Thanks, Almost Famous. If y'all haven't ran over and subscribed to Almost Famous, slide over there and tap into her channel. And if y'all on TikTok, come over to TikTok and subscribe to us both.
Hey,
All right. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye bye, y'all. See y'all tomorrow.